Yo, what's good, man? Daily vlog number 5. Man, today I took the SPED EC through 12 Texas teacher certification test, and man, it went so well. I'm not even gonna lie. Um, so first of all, the second time I took this test, I finished with 5 minutes remaining. Right. This time I took it, I finished with 120 minutes remaining. Like I flew by the test. Now, I will say that on this test, I did see some answers, some questions that were on the first test, and a few that was on the second test. That might have happened for like 8 questions. Number one. Um, then man, I was just super prepared, dog. Like, I really didn't have to, take a break. I really memorized so much from my test preparation. And one thing that different that I did was for so in my flashcards for Quizlet, I did like scenario based flashcards. So I basically memorized scenarios, and that fed into literally the test. So like I say, the Texas, EC through 12 test for SPED is a lot of scenario based questions, fact and scenario based. So by me just, memorizing a lot of scenarios, of course, like with the terminologies like, intellectual disability, emotional disturbance, things like that. Man, I literally just flew by the test. I was running to all my scenarios, just kept coming, kept coming, kept coming, and so I reviewed. I went from from the front to the end, beginning to end. Just to review, but not gonna lie, yo, I definitely killed the test. Um, One thing that was like a huge factor for me was man, for the most part, knowing that also like being super confident. That's one. I ain't gonna lie. Because another thing, a issue I feel like with a lot of people, including myself, you build up this confidence, and then when you get into the room, it kind of fades because you're not in the same spot, or you can't just check your answer like you normally would. Like when you click a question, boom, check your answer. The answer's right there. You know whether you got it right or wrong. You really just have to keep going, and that was the biggest really adjuster for me. Is I felt like I was taking my actual practice exams, literally. Like it felt like me being in a coffee shop. I just kept imagining myself in a coffee shop, particularly as it's this coffee shop in Houston called Coffee Fellows, and literally just grinding it out. Like, okay, I know this, I know this, I know this, I know this, and just kept it going. I was super well rested. I meditated and prayed beforehand. This morning I woke up around like 4 or 5 in the morning. Took all my vitamins and stuff like that. And then I looked over. This is the first time I ever did this. I actually looked over my prep book, and then I prayed and meditated for about, let's just say, 45 minutes. Um, and man, I was ready to go. I was like, man, it's just time to go. But I had never beforehand. I had never actually reviewed my prep before I go take any a test. And mind you, like I said, we did that in college. We did that in eighth grade, sixth grade, 11th grade, whatever. But it's like as an adult, it's like you don't give yourself the grace and time to actually do some of the things that you did when you were younger to get good grades. So now, like, obviously, that would just make perfect sense if you operate like that. So so like I said, reviewed all my prep stuff, my prep work. Went to go take it, got in there. Um, like I say, I knew I was counting, and I was like, by the I should be operating at like a minute, minute and a half per question, and just flying through it, and I was able just to keep the pace. And for the most part, this test prep stuff has really taught me a lot about myself. Um, taught me a lot on how I need to study, more than likely, like really, first of all, is finding my environment, finding an environment that that I knew that I could study well in, whether that was Whole Foods, the libraries, Houston Public Libraries, whether it was my room, I just had to make a new setup, whether that was going to some universities. I would go to St. Thomas here in Houston. I go to Houston Christian. Don't have to pay to park. Just park your car, get some tacos, get something to drink. Go in the student center or go in the library there and just get going. Um, for the most part, I realized that like one of the biggest takeaways as well from this test was understanding that because I took different practice tests, that really from different companies, from different prep companies, that really helped me as well. That was a gem I didn't really understand until like after the test, because I was getting an inkling I was that it was something wrong with me being able to memorize every single question. Like I just didn't believe that of course like when you get in the test it's going to be the exact same thing. So word for word. So then like I said, I started looking at practice tests and practice questions from different companies. I used Exam Edge. I used 240 Tutoring, and a few other companies. And one of my friends, he recommended these set of practice questions that happen to be on the site that we register when we register for our exam in Texas. And so I went through all those like 50 questions. It was a lot of ChatGPT stuff that I came up with. But I'm not gonna lie, like focusing on memorizing scenarios really helped me with this test. It was like, if I can understand the scenario and the purpose for whatever the answer would be, like why this answer basically fits the scenario, then I'll be successful. So, and that's really what happened. So I'm really happy that I was able to take the time out to just do multiple practice tests from all different companies. And like I said, man, I definitely reviewed questions a lot more this time. And one thing that I didn't do beforehand, I had to really slow myself down. So I went back to literally just um, writing down definitions, like how we used to back in fifth, sixth grade. Like you just go to the glossary. And that was some of our assignments. We literally would just write down, the definitions to words, right? And I kid you not, that works because it's like so when you get to these questions, if you're able to know the meaning behind an important word, it can really be that aha moment. You know what I mean? So for me, that was like extremely impactful. Also, I was telling some of my friends this, like, man, for the last 3 weeks, I've been going to sleep at 10 o'clock, 9:30, and 10:30, and bro, waking up at 4:30, and 5 o'clock in the morning, and literally like studying for first hour, and just so I wouldn't get like too burnt out. I would cross study with Spanish. So sometimes I do a Spanish for a full hour, and then I'll go into my practice sets for the next hour. And also I started setting a timer. So I set my timer on my MacBook for an hour, so I can't do anything else for this 1 hour. And if I do if I have to pause, let's say I got to go to the restroom, I'll just pause, and then like I said, once I get back, I just start timer again. And once I do an hour, then you give yourself grace and be able to I don't know, do anything that fun that you want to do, stream the internet, whatever. Um, but for the most part, that's kind of how I really was able to stay focused. Um, I did another thing I did do. There's a lady on YouTube who posts her tutorials, right? She led a session with somebody else, and she has a bunch of them. But I only watched like one and a half of the videos, which was like almost an hour and a half, 2 hours. But she said something that was really impactful, and she was like, what would be the teacher's goal in this scenario?" And she also said like to look out for always choose the answer that's asking the student to like perform an action. As long as the student has like concrete examples, he's being asked to perform the action, um, then more likely you choose the right answer. I'm not gonna lie, this third test I got way less questions about assistive technology, way less. I might have got 3 questions about assistive technology. Um, but and I studied super heavy on that. I didn't get any questions about you know the pre-operational and concrete representations of Jean Piaget's cognitive development theory. I didn't get any questions on that. I got one question about BF Skinner, and that was it, literally. Um, so for the most part, man, I use lots of Quizlets. I made a lot of Quizlet, man, flashcards. Went super hard on that. But I didn't lock in on all, different types of terms. It would just come back up in the scenarios. But for the most part, man, I I just studied scenarios 24/7. Like, okay, this when this happens, this happens. When this cause happens, this is the effect. So now I was just really ecstatic about that. And man, I just learned so much about myself in this process, and kind of like the importance of sometimes when you're studying, you have to like really shut a lot of things down, and you have to just focus on this one particular thing. And then, like I said, when it's over, you get to do a bunch of other stuff, and you get to take with you what you learned and put it into your next set of coursework or prep for a test. But I will be releasing a scenario book for the teacher cert special education. And I'm gonna be looking over all the other tests, and hopefully I can come up with a scenario book for the test as well. So if anybody's taking wants to be a special education teacher in Texas, and you got to go through the process of getting certified, I will, you know, within probably the next 2 weeks, I'm going to already have a scenario or three. I'm gonna have a scenario based book. It's gonna be like 300 scenarios to prepare you for for the test. And man, I'm really excited about finally now being able to apply for a job, being able to just get past this and move on to the LSAT, and really just take everything that I learned with this test and just applying it to the LSAT. And man, like I said, I was a person that used to pull all nighters all the time when I was at Tulane. I was a person that would drink energy drinks, be high on caffeine from maybe like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. I used to close the libraries, all type of stuff, like. And now I believe, man, the best strategy is to go to bed at 10 o'clock. Is to really be honest with yourself about what you have accomplished for the day, and literally just go to bed and wake up at 4 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, and just go super hard. And like whether you gotta have your music, whatever, just go super hard before you go to work, before you go to school, and just keep going. But I'm gonna be like I say daily vlog. Like I said, man, we took the SPED exam. I'll be telling you guys my results when they come in on Thursday. But man, today was an extremely successful day, and now man, I'm just gonna be applying all that same energy to the LSAT. You know what I mean? So, but man, peace and love, man. See y'all tomorrow.